They trusted her with their child. What they discovered, hidden in her hair, shattered everything. Every afternoon, the front door opened, not to the sound of joyous chatter about a day filled with learning and laughter, but to the heartbreaking sobs of a little girl. Thomas Valero watched his daughter wither before his eyes, the bright spark dimming each day she returned from kindergarten. He knew, deep in his gut, that this wasn't just new school jitters. Something sinister was unfolding behind the colorful classroom walls, a secret veiled in fear. When gentle questions yielded only tearful silence, Thomas realized he'd have to uncover the truth himself. The method was unconventional, perhaps even desperate, but the thought of his daughter suffering another day was unbearable. What he eventually heard, captured by a tiny device nestled in her hair, was more chilling than he could have ever imagined. A nightmare playing out in the very place meant to nurture her growth. This is the shocking story of a father forced to take extreme measures and the horrifying reality he exposed. Starting school marks a monumental milestone in a child's life, a threshold into a wider world brimming with new experiences, friendships, and knowledge. It's a period inherently laced with anxiety, unfamiliar faces, imposing routines, the sheer scale of a new environment. Parents anticipate a period of adjustment, offering extra hugs, patient ears, and unwavering support. They place immense trust in educators, believing them to be partners in nurturing their child's potential. But what happens when that trust is betrayed? What happens when the person responsible for fostering growth becomes the source of fear? For Thomas Valero, this terrifying question became an inescapable reality. His daughter, a bright and previously bubbly little girl, had eagerly anticipated starting kindergarten at Pine Grove Elementary School. Thomas and his wife had prepared her, talking excitedly about making new friends and learning new things. Initially, there was the expected nervousness, the slight clinginess at the school gate. Thomas attributed her occasional post-school tears to the normal fatigue and overwhelm of adapting. He reassured himself, thinking, "She just needs time." Time didn't heal. It deepened the wound. Days bled into weeks, and weeks stretched into agonizing months. The initial nervousness morphed into something darker, more pervasive. The little girl who once skipped into the house, eager to share drawings and stories, now dragged her feet, eyes downcast, shoulders slumped. The tears became a daily ritual, starting even before breakfast. Mornings transformed into tense standoffs, his daughter clinging to him, begging, pleading with wide, terrified eyes, "Daddy, please don't make me go. Please, I don't want to go." Thomas's heart clenched with each sob. This wasn't simple reluctance, this was raw fear. He tried everything he could think of. Gentle probing, "Honey, can you tell Daddy what's wrong? Did someone say something mean? Did you have a bad day?" only made her clam up, burrowing into herself as if afraid the words themselves were dangerous. He spoke to her mother, sharing his mounting dread. They observed her closely, ruling out issues at home. Their family life was stable, loving, and supportive. The change was stark, sudden, and undeniably linked to her school attendance. Before Pine Grove, his daughter was a paradigm of a happy child, imaginative, outgoing, quick to laugh, and effortlessly making friends. Her preschool reports had glowed with positive comments about her creativity and social skills. Now, she was a shadow of her former self, withdrawn, anxious, and perpetually on the verge of tears. Her grades, initially strong, began to slip. Feedback from the school remained superficially positive, brief notes mentioning she was adjusting, which only deepened Thomas's confusion and suspicion. The disconnect between the official reports and the terrified child standing before him every morning was jarring. He lay awake at night, his mind racing. Was it bullying? Had another child targeted her? He considered the possibility, knowing how cruel children could sometimes be. But his daughter's fear seemed directed less at her peers and more at the institution itself, the very act of being there. Bolder, more unsettling thought began to take root. Could it be the teacher? Mrs. Duncan, the experienced kindergarten teacher, had seemed perfectly pleasant during their brief initial meeting. But pleasantries could mask anything. Thomas knew the profound impact educators have during these formative years. Kindergarten isn't just about learning ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. It's where children develop social skills, build confidence, and form foundational attitudes toward learning itself. He and his wife had always prioritized creating a positive, encouraging environment at home, fostering resilience and self-worth in their children. The thought that a teacher, someone entrusted with this crucial developmental stage, could be actively undermining their daughter's well-being filled him with a growing sense of outrage. Patience, he knew, was a virtue, especially when dealing with young children. Educators, above all, needed reservoirs of it. The evidence mounting before him suggested a profound lack of it in his daughter's classroom. He felt increasingly powerless, watching his child's spirit erode day by day. The breaking point wasn't a single event, but the crushing weight of accumulated tears and unanswered pleas. He couldn't stand by any longer. He had to know. But how? Asking to observe the class would be futile. Any problematic behavior would surely be masked under scrutiny. Talking to the teacher directly felt premature without concrete evidence. It would likely be dismissed as parental overreaction. He needed irrefutable proof, something that captured the reality of his daughter's daily experience. Driven by a protective instinct that bordered on desperation, Thomas conceived a plan. It felt audacious, intrusive, perhaps even legally gray, but his daughter's silent suffering trumped any hesitation. He sourced a miniature audio recording device, incredibly small and unobtrusive. The next morning, his hands slightly trembling, he carefully tucked the tiny device into his daughter's hair bow, explaining it was a special sparkle for her day. He deliberately kept its true purpose hidden, not wanting to burden her with the secret or make her self-conscious. That day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Thomas found himself unable to concentrate on work, his mind constantly drifting to the elementary school, imagining the sounds the tiny device might be capturing. He felt a knot of anxiety tighten in his stomach, partly from the fear of what he might discover, and partly from the hope that he might finally understand. When his daughter returned home that afternoon, the usual cloud of sadness hung about her. Thomas greeted her with a forced smile, gently removing the hair bow as she unpacked her bag. Later that evening, alone in his study, he plugged the device into his computer, took a deep breath, and pressed play. What he heard sent a wave of nausea, and then white-hot fury through him. It wasn't just one or two harsh words. It was a relentless barrage of negativity. Mrs. Duncan's voice, stripped of any warmth, dripped with sarcasm and impatience. He heard her yelling, her tone sharp and condescending, berating young children for the smallest perceived infractions, dropping a crayon, asking a question, not sitting perfectly still. He heard his own daughter's timid voice asking for help, only to be met with a dismissive, irritated sigh and a cutting remark that made Thomas flinch as if he'd been struck himself. He listened, horrified, as the teacher belittled students, used shaming tactics, and fostered an atmosphere not of learning, but of fear. There were no physical threats, but the psychological and emotional toll was palpable even through the recording. Joyless, tense environment, the stifled creativity, the constant undercurrent of adult anger. It was emotional abuse, plain and simple. It explained everything, his daughter's tears, her fear, her withdrawal. She wasn't just adjusting, she was surviving a daily ordeal. Thomas felt sickened and enraged. This woman, paid to nurture young minds, was instead poisoning their experience, potentially inflicting long-lasting emotional scars. He knew immediately he couldn't let this continue. Armed with the damning audio evidence, he felt a grim sense of validation mixed with profound anger. The little girl, and likely others, were trapped in a toxic environment disguised as education. His first instinct was to confront the teacher directly. He quickly realized that wouldn't solve the systemic issue. This needed to be addressed at a higher level. Next day, Thomas scheduled a meeting with the principal and representatives from the public school district. He presented his findings calmly but firmly, playing excerpts from the recording. He expected shock, apologies, and immediate action. Instead, the response was tepid, bureaucratic. They acknowledged the teacher's tone was inappropriate and assured him Mrs. Duncan would be disciplined. They offered to move his daughter to another kindergarten class within the same school. But that wasn't enough for Thomas. What about the other children still in Mrs. Duncan's care? Moving his daughter solved his immediate problem, but it felt like abandoning the others to the same fate. He argued that Mrs. Duncan's behavior demonstrated a fundamental unsuitability for teaching young children, and she should be removed from the classroom entirely, pending a thorough investigation. District officials demurred, citing procedures, union rules, and the difficulties of dismissal. They seemed more concerned with containing the situation than addressing its root cause. Thomas left the meeting feeling profoundly disillusioned and angrier than ever. The system designed to protect children seemed more interested in protecting itself. He refused to accept their inadequate solution. This was bigger than just his daughter now. It was about ensuring a safe learning environment for all children at Pine Grove. He knew he couldn't fight this battle alone. He cautiously reached out to other parents in Mrs. Duncan's class, sharing his concerns, though not initially the recording, respecting privacy. Some were hesitant, perhaps fearing repercussions, but others echoed his unease, sharing observations of their own children becoming anxious or reluctant to attend school. Feeling stonewalled by the official channels, Thomas decided to take the matter public. He started an online petition on a popular platform, outlining the situation without naming students and calling for Mrs. Duncan's removal or reassignment away from young children. He shared the petition within local parent groups online. Response was overwhelming. Word spread like wildfire. Parents from Pine Grove and then from across the district and even beyond expressed outrage and support. The petition garnered hundreds, then thousands of signatures in a matter of days. Local news outlets picked up the story, drawn by the compelling narrative of a father fighting for his child's well-being against an unresponsive system. Thomas found himself unexpectedly thrust into the media spotlight, giving interviews, sharing his story carefully to protect his daughter's identity, and amplifying the call for accountability. Public pressure mounted on the school district. Rallies were organized outside the school board offices. The story resonated deeply with parents everywhere who understood the vulnerability of children and the trust placed in schools. While the district still hadn't fired Mrs. Duncan by the end of the school year, the intense scrutiny forced them to place her under review and implement closer monitoring. For Thomas, the fight was exhausting but essential. His daughter was eventually moved to a different class with a wonderfully kind and patient teacher. Slowly, gradually, the light began to return to her eyes. The morning tears subsided, replaced by a tentative willingness and eventually genuine enjoyment of school. Seeing her gradual recovery was Thomas's greatest reward. He learned difficult lessons through the ordeal. He learned that sometimes the systems meant to protect can fail. He learned that parental intuition should never be ignored. He learned that uncovering the truth sometimes requires uncomfortable, even drastic measures. But most importantly, he learned the profound power of advocacy. By refusing to stay silent, by pushing back against indifference, he had not only rescued his own daughter, but had also sparked a crucial conversation about teacher conduct and administrative accountability in his community. The experience forged an even stronger bond within his family. Thomas became hyper-aware of the subtle cues in his children's behavior, a more vigilant guardian of their emotional well-being. He knew that while he couldn't shield them from every hardship life might throw their way, he could, and always would, stand up for them, fight for them, and ensure their voices were heard, especially when they were too small or too afraid to speak for themselves. The future of Mrs. Duncan remained uncertain, but Thomas hoped his actions had, at the very least, ensured greater scrutiny and perhaps prevented other children from enduring the same fear and unhappiness his daughter had faced. He had looked behind the curtain of assumed safety and discovered a darkness. But in fighting it, he reaffirmed the enduring power of a parent's love and the lengths they will go to protect their child. This story highlights the incredible lengths a parent will go to protect their child and the importance of vigilance in our educational systems. What are your thoughts on Thomas's actions and the school district's response? Do you believe hidden recordings are justified in situations like this? Share your opinions and any similar experiences you might have in the comments section below. If you found this story compelling and believe in the importance of shedding light on such issues, please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for more impactful stories and real-life accounts. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you stay updated whenever new content is released. Your engagement helps raise awareness about crucial topics like child safety and parental advocacy.